They met on a day that did not promise anything special. The sky was low and grey, the kind that presses softly on your shoulders, making you walk a little slower, think a little deeper. Eleanor had chosen that cafe not because she loved it, but because it was quiet and anonymous, a place where no one asked questions and time felt suspended. She sat by the window with a cup of coffee growing cold between her hands, pretending to read while actually watching people pass by outside, each of them carrying a story she would never know. When Daniel entered, she noticed him without knowing why. He was not loud, not striking in an obvious way. He carried himself with a calm that seemed practiced, as if he had learned how to be invisible when the world became too heavy. He hesitated at the door, scanned the room, and chose the table beside hers. Their eyes met briefly, just long enough for something unspoken to pass between them, and then both looked away. They did not speak that day. They shared nothing but space and silence. Yet when Eleanor left, she felt as if she had forgotten something important behind, something unnamed but heavy enough to pull at her chest. She told herself it was nothing. She was good at that, at convincing herself that feelings were just accidents of mood. They met again a week later, and then again. The same cafe, the same window, the same quiet hours. It became a ritual without agreement. One afternoon, as rain traced thin lines down the glass, Daniel finally spoke. "Do you come here to disappear?" he asked softly, "or to be found?" The question startled her. She looked at him, really looked this time, and saw tired eyes that had learned how to hide hope. "I think," she said after a moment, "I come here to remember who I was before everything became complicated." He smiled, not wide, not easy, but honest. "Then we have something in common." From that moment, words began to exist between them. They spoke carefully at first, as if afraid that honesty might break the fragile balance. They talked about books, about places they had never been but dreamed of, about small details that usually went unnoticed, the sound of footsteps at night, the comfort of old songs, the way certain memories refused to fade. Eleanor learned that Daniel had loved once, deeply, and lost not through betrayal, but through timing. He had chosen responsibility over desire, safety over passion, and the decision had followed him like a shadow. Daniel learned that Eleanor had built walls so high that even she sometimes forgot what they were protecting. She had been hurt not by one great tragedy, but by many small disappointments that taught her not to expect too much. Weeks turned into months. They began to walk together after the cafe closed, through streets glowing with yellow lights and quiet promises. Sometimes they spoke for hours. Sometimes silence felt more intimate than words. Eleanor noticed how Daniel listened, not waiting for his turn to speak, but truly listening, as if every sentence mattered. Daniel noticed the way Eleanor laughed when she forgot to be careful, how her voice softened when she spoke about things she loved. Love did not arrive suddenly. It did not announce itself. It grew quietly, like roots beneath the surface, unseen but strong. Eleanor realized it one evening when Daniel did not come. The chair beside hers remained empty, and the absence felt louder than any noise. She told herself again that it meant nothing, yet her hands trembled slightly when she lifted her cup. He returned the next day, apologetic, explaining a family emergency. Relief washed over her before she could stop it. Their eyes met, and something shifted. The space between them felt charged, fragile. "I was afraid," Daniel admitted later that night as they walked, "that if I didn't come back, I would disappear from your life without leaving a trace." "You already left one," Eleanor said quietly. "I just didn't want to name it." They stopped walking. The city seemed to hold its breath. Daniel reached out, hesitated, then gently took her hand. It was not dramatic. It was simple, and because of that, overwhelming. Eleanor felt something inside her surrender, not to him, but to the possibility of happiness. Their love unfolded slowly, deliberately. They learned each other's fears, each other's limits. They argued sometimes, not loudly, but with intensity, because both had something to lose now. Daniel struggled with the fear of choosing again and being wrong. Eleanor struggled with letting herself depend on someone without losing herself. One night, after a particularly painful argument, Eleanor said what she had been avoiding. "What if we love each other, but that isn't enough?" Daniel looked at her, eyes steady. "Then we learn how to make it enough. Together. Or we walk away knowing we tried." The honesty of that answer broke something open in her. Love, she realized, was not the absence of fear, but the decision to stay despite it. Time passed. Seasons changed. They traveled together, not far, but meaningfully. They built traditions, Sunday mornings, shared playlists, quiet conversations before sleep. Love became less like fire and more like warmth, constant and alive. Yet life, as it always does, tested them. Daniel was offered a job in another country, an opportunity that could not be postponed or softened. Eleanor felt the old fear rise, the knowledge that loving someone meant risking loss. "I won't ask you to stay," she said, voice steady despite the storm inside. "And I won't pretend I'm not afraid." Daniel held her face gently. "I don't want a future where you are a memory I couldn't hold on to." They chose uncertainty together. Distance tested their patience, their trust, their ability to believe in what they had built. There were nights filled with longing, days marked by silence. But every return felt like a promise renewed. Years later, standing again by the cafe window where it all began, Eleanor understood something she hadn't before. Love was not found in grand gestures or perfect timing. It lived in quiet choices, in staying, in listening, in risking the heart even when it might break. Daniel took her hand, just as he had that first night. "Do you still come here to disappear?" he asked. She smiled, leaning into him. "No," she said. "Now I come here because I was found that they did not fall in love gently. There was nothing polite or quiet about the way desire entered their lives. It came like a slow-burning fever, unnoticed at first, then impossible to ignore. From the very beginning, Eleanor felt it in her body before she allowed it into her mind. The way Daniel's presence shifted the air around her, the way her thoughts betrayed her when he was near. She told herself it was curiosity, then habit, then coincidence. But her pulse told a different story. Daniel noticed it too, long before he admitted it to himself. He noticed how Eleanor's voice changed when she spoke to him, how her eyes lingered just a second longer than necessary. He noticed the tension in his own shoulders when she laughed, the way he became acutely aware of the distance between them, how easily it could be closed, how dangerous that would be. Their conversations grew heavier, charged with unsaid things. Words brushed against boundaries they pretended not to see. Every glance carried questions neither of them dared to ask. They spoke about everything except the one truth pulsing between them. One evening, after the cafe closed and the streets glowed with rain and neon light, something broke. They were standing too close. Eleanor could smell him, clean, warm, unmistakably real. Daniel's hand hovered near her waist, not touching, yet already claiming space. Her breath caught, and she hated herself for it, hated how easily he could undo her. "Say something," she whispered, not trusting her strength much longer. "If I do," Daniel replied hoarsely, "there's no pretending after." She lifted her eyes to his. "Then don't pretend." The kiss was inevitable, but it was not gentle. It was hungry, restrained only by fear and restraint learned too late. Daniel kissed her as if he had been denying himself for months, as if her mouth held an answer he had been afraid to hear. Eleanor responded with equal intensity, fingers gripping his coat, grounding herself in the reality of him. When they pulled apart, both were breathing hard, shaken. "This changes everything," Eleanor said. "Yes," Daniel answered. "And I don't care." Their passion did not explode all at once. It unfolded in stolen moments, in nights where hands explored slowly, reverently, learning every reaction, every weakness. Daniel learned how Eleanor trembled when touched just right, how she tried to hide it and failed. Eleanor learned the exact point where Daniel's control fractured, how his voice darkened when he wanted her too much. They fought the desire even as they fed it. There were nights when they stopped themselves at the edge, hearts racing, bodies aching, because crossing that line meant surrender. But surrender came anyway. The first time they made love, it was not perfect. It was intense, emotional, overwhelming. Eleanor cried afterward, not from sadness, but from the terrifying realization that she was no longer safe from him. Daniel held her as if letting go would destroy them both. From then on, their love became fierce. They loved each other with urgency, with need, with the knowledge that nothing was guaranteed. They argued passionately, reconciled desperately. Their nights were filled with whispered confessions, with skin against skin, with promises made between breaths. Daniel struggled with the depth of it. "You feel like something I can't survive losing," he confessed once, forehead pressed to hers. And yet, Eleanor replied, "You stay." "I stay because leaving would hurt more." They pushed each other to the edge of themselves. Eleanor learned to be vulnerable in ways she had sworn she never would. Daniel learned that strength did not mean control, but surrender. Their love was not calm. It was alive, demanding, consuming. When distance threatened them again, it felt like torture. Their calls were heavy with longing, their reunions desperate and explosive. Every touch felt like reclaiming something stolen. Years later, the passion had not faded. It had deepened. It lived in the way Daniel still looked at Eleanor as if she could undo him, in the way Eleanor still leaned into his touch as if it anchored her to the world. Standing together one quiet night, Eleanor finally understood. Passion was not just desire. It was choosing the same person again and again, even when it terrified you. Daniel kissed her slowly then, no rush, no doubt. "You still scare me," he admitted. She smiled against his lips. "Good. That means you still feel something." And he did. He always would. Desire did not ask them for permission. It lived in the spaces between words, in the pauses that lasted too long, in the way their bodies leaned toward each other before their minds caught up. Eleanor felt it as a low ache beneath her skin, a constant awareness of Daniel that followed her even when he wasn't there. It was not polite, not safe. It was hunger disguised as restraint. Daniel tried to keep his distance. He failed every time. Her presence unraveled him slowly, exquisitely. The scent of her hair when she passed too close. The warmth of her knee brushing his under the table. The way she looked at him when she thought he wasn't watching. Open, unguarded, dangerous. They touched by accident at first. Fingers grazing. Hands lingering too long. Each contact left something behind. A pulse, a memory the body refused to forget. Eleanor began to crave those moments, replaying them at night, her breath uneven, her thoughts betraying her discipline. When it finally happened, there was no conversation, no careful lead-up. Only tension snapping. Daniel closed the door behind them, and the sound echoed too loudly in the quiet room. Eleanor stood still, heart racing, every nerve awake. He looked at her the way a man looks when he is done pretending. Slowly, deliberately, he stepped closer. "Tell me to stop," he said, voice low, strained. She didn't answer. She lifted her hands to his chest instead, feeling his heartbeat under her palms, fast, unsteady. That was all the permission he needed. The kiss was deep, consuming, stripped of hesitation. His mouth claimed hers with intent, not asking, not rushing, but certain. Eleanor melted into him, every careful wall collapsing at once. She felt his hands on her back, firm, possessive, sending heat through her spine. Her body responded before her mind could intervene. They pressed together, breaths tangled, the world narrowing to skin and sensation. Daniel kissed her neck slowly, deliberately, learning her reactions, savoring the way her body arched toward him despite herself. Eleanor's fingers tightened in his shirt, grounding herself in the reality of him, needing to feel that he was real, that this was happening. "This is dangerous," she whispered, even as she leaned closer. "Yes," he answered against her skin. "And I've never wanted anything more." They undressed each other without hurry, without embarrassment. Every revealed inch felt intimate, charged. Daniel touched her as if memorizing her, hands warm, reverent, making her shiver under his attention. Eleanor discovered how sensitive he was to her touch, how easily control slipped when she traced him slowly, deliberately. When they came together, it was intense and overwhelming, driven by months of denial and restrained need. There was no distance left, no space for fear. Eleanor gave herself to the moment completely, body and heart trembling with the realization that she was crossing a line she would never be able to uncross. Afterward, they lay tangled together, breath slowly evening out, skin still warm. Eleanor rested her head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat, realizing it had already become something she depended on. "This isn't just desire," Daniel said quietly. "I know the difference." "So do I," she replied, though the truth scared her. Their intimacy deepened after that night. It wasn't only about the physical connection, though that remained powerful, addictive. It was the way they looked at each other across a room, the silent understanding, the way Daniel could undo Eleanor with a single touch, a single word spoken too softly. They loved each other with intensity, with urgency, aware that something so consuming could also destroy them. But neither of them wanted safety anymore. They wanted truth. They wanted each other. Even years later, the fire never fully cooled. It changed, matured, but it never disappeared. Desire still sparked between them in quiet moments, in familiar touches that carried memory and promise. Eleanor learned that giving herself fully did not make her weak. Daniel learned that wanting someone this deeply was not a flaw. It was love, raw, intimate, and terrifying in its power. And neither of them would ever regret it. They loved each other as if time were already running out. The passion between Eleanor and Daniel never softened. It deepened, sharpened, became more dangerous with every shared night. It lived in the way Daniel's hands found her in the dark without hesitation, in the way Eleanor responded to him instinctively, as if her body had learned a language her mind could no longer refuse. Their desire was not reckless, it was intentional, chosen again and again, even when both of them understood the cost. They learned each other completely. Eleanor knew how to pull Daniel back when he drifted into silence, how to ground him with nothing more than a touch on his wrist. Daniel knew how to read Eleanor's breathing, how to sense the exact moment when she needed closeness instead of words. Their intimacy was not only physical, it was invasive, transformative, leaving no part of either of them untouched. Some nights, after lovemaking, Eleanor lay awake against Daniel's chest, listening to his heartbeat and feeling a quiet dread settle inside her. Not fear of him, but fear of the future. Love this intense never arrived without consequence. Daniel felt it too. He held her tighter on those nights, as if pressure alone could keep reality away. He had learned, painfully, that happiness did not linger without demanding payment. The truth arrived slowly, cruelly, wrapped in practicality. Daniel was sick. Not dramatically at first. Fatigue, missed appointments, unconvincing reassurances. Eleanor sensed the shift before he confessed. She had learned his body too well not to notice when it betrayed him. When he finally told her, they were lying together, sheets tangled, skins still warm from each other. "It's serious," he said quietly. "Not immediate. But not something that goes away." The room seemed to narrow around them. Eleanor did not cry. She pressed her face into his neck instead, breathing him in, memorizing the feel of him, the sound of his voice, as if instinctively preparing for loss. They did not become gentle after that. If anything, their love grew fiercer. Desperation sharpened desire. They touched as if trying to imprint themselves onto each other, as if memory could be carved into flesh. Every kiss felt like defiance. Every shared night felt stolen. Daniel made love to Eleanor with a tenderness that bordered on agony, as if he were apologizing with every touch. Eleanor held him with equal intensity, refusing to let sorrow replace hunger. She would not let their last chapter be quiet or restrained. "If this ends," she told him once, fingers tracing his spine, "it will end knowing we lived fully." Daniel closed his eyes, forehead pressed to hers. "You are the best thing that ever happened to me." Time betrayed them anyway. Daniel weakened. Eleanor became his anchor, his constant. She learned how to be strong without becoming distant, how to love without collapsing. But there were moments, small, cruel moments, when she caught him watching her with a look that broke her open. One night, long after sleep should have come, Daniel woke her with a kiss. Slow, intentional, different. "Stay with me," he whispered. "I'm here," she answered, already shaking. They made love for the last time without naming it as such. It was unhurried, intimate, devastatingly present. Every movement was a goodbye disguised as desire. Eleanor felt the weight of it even as she clung to him, her body responding with a need sharpened by grief. Afterward, Daniel held her longer than ever before. "If I had more time," he said softly, "I would choose you every day." Eleanor buried her face in his chest, tears finally breaking free. "You already did." Daniel died quietly, without drama, without heroics. Eleanor was there, holding his hand, whispering his name as if repetition could keep him tethered to the world. It didn't. The aftermath was unbearable in its stillness. The bed was too large. The nights too silent. Eleanor moved through days like a ghost, carrying a love that had nowhere to go. Months later, she returned to the cafe where it had begun. She sat by the window, hands wrapped around a cooling cup, watching strangers pass by. The ache never left her, but it softened, transforming into something survivable. She had loved deeply, completely, and though it destroyed her, she would do it again. Because some loves are not meant to last. They are meant to burn.